All right. So, talking about the vertebrate group. We went over invertebrates on Friday. Today we're going to go to the vertebrate group. So, animals that are vertebrates are simply animals without a backbone. So, in your notes where it says definition, this is what you need to write. Animals with a backbone. For definition and for vertebrate, you need to write what I underlined. Animals with a backbone. Now, next it says vertebrates have a blank. The answer is endoskeleton. Vertebrates have an endoskeleton. Now, we discussed a little bit about what this means, but an endoskeleton is the opposite of exoskeleton. What does this prefix endo mean? Not exo, endo. Parker?
I'm not completely sure, but I'm guessing it.
Very good. It has to do with inside or inside of something. So an endoskeleton is where the animal's system of structure and support, so its skeletal bone system, is inside the body as opposed to outside. Okay? That's like us, right? Our skeletal structure is inside of our skin, inside of our body, and it serves to offer support and protect the soft parts of the animal. All your major organs, aside from your brain, are in the trunk of your body, right? What bones are in this section that help protect my lungs, my liver, my kidneys? Hannah? Your ribs, your rib cage. That is the whole point of your rib cage. Yes, it helps you stand upright, right, and not be like a puddle of motion on the floor. It does give us support, but they also help serve to protect those soft organs on the inside of your body. Okay? Your cranium, your skull, okay? The main job of your skull is to protect your brain. Okay? That's the point of the endoskeleton. Ethan H? You may have to kind of adjust your seating arrangement here. Maybe? Yeah. That'll work. If you need to come move, you can. That's fine. Sophie?
The first one's like it, but on it looks like an elephant's head.
Yeah, it kind of does. The pelvic bone.
Yeah.
Very important.
Elephant.
Reagan? Yeah, very good. Landon?
So, honestly, I didn't know that knowledge was actually a part of biology. So I've been doing this study before I learned about it when I was in college. My mom was actually skin.
Oh, okay.
And also, I just thought about this the other day about vertebrates. Would starch and juice go outside the vertebrates to make them that, and that's the ones that are made of?
Cartilage? Yeah. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. All right. Nope, hands down right now. Vertebrates can be either ectotherms or endotherms. Yeah, same prefix here, endotherm. Okay? An endotherm is a warm-blooded animal. An ectotherm is just a fancy word for cold-blooded animal. Okay? So ectotherms, or cold-blooded animals, their body temperature changes with the surrounding environment. Okay? So think of snakes, lizards, turtles, lots of reptile type, amphibian type animals. Those are all cold-blooded animals. Okay? Which means in order for them to warm up, they have to swim to a warmer water area. Okay? When I was younger, my family took a trip to a place called Hurricane Shoals in Georgia. And it was kind of like this big, like rocky waterfall type area. And we were swimming. We got on tubes and rode down the shoal, like the rocky shoal. It was like a natural water slide. It was kind of cool. But once you got down the shoals kind of dropped off into just the river, which is like a very still kind of area. Okay, so my younger brother Patrick was really small, and he was floating down the shoals, and he and my mom accidentally got they went all the way down the shoals and then dropped off into the still water river part. And as they were kind of floating down there, they passed by a rock, and my mom saw 2 snakes on the rock with their fangs out because they were sunning themselves. So when the sun was out, they were warming up on the rock. And she like grabbed my little brother and like hiked back up the river. She was like, we are not facing those snakes today.
Not today.
But my point in saying that is that's what a cold-blooded animal does. Okay. Oftentimes in the summer, you can see in my parents' neighborhood, you can see if you drive by like one of the little lakes in the area, you can see all the little turtles up on this one stick that sticks up out of the water. Okay, because they're all trying to sun themselves and warm up because they're cold-blooded. They can't just warm their bodies up naturally. They have to get to a warmer area or a sunny area. Okay. Endotherms, however, are the opposite. They can regulate their body temperature without having to change their environment. Their body just kind of handles that themselves. Okay? Vertebrate animals fall into the chordate phylum. In Latin, that would be chordata, which is what we're going to put in our chart in just a little bit. The chordate phylum. The chordate phylum is divided into classes. There are 5 classes: fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds, and mammals. So, in our chart that we have over there on the board, I'm going to do it up here so the online kids can see it. But we have that Animalia kingdom, okay, which we divide into 2 groups. This bigger section over here is the invertebrate. Over here is the vertebrae. Okay? So this big long box for vertebrae, that's where we would write chordata. Okay? And then there are 5 classes beneath that. Okay? We'll add this to our chart later. You don't have to do it right now, but you can if you want to. Okay? But that's what that means. Parker?
About the cold brothers and
Uh-huh.
we were our family was on a hike and we saw a huge well I was really already saw it at first.
Uh-huh.
I was walking by looking at the picture. There was a huge snake, but it looked it had like a damage product on it.
Ooh.
And it like looked like it was dead because it looked like it was injured and it was just staying there.
Uh-huh.
And so I think this is really dumb of me, but I told my dad to let me and so he did, and it like I thought it would just like be dead.
Uh-huh.
It moved and like made a rattling.
Nope.
But we think it was a grass snake because we couldn't hear rattle. A grass snake, they just like come their tail on the ground.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they also.
Nope. Interesting. No, thank you. I don't do snakes. Okay, so the 5 classes of vertebrae: fish, amphibians, birds, reptiles, and mammals. First, we're going to learn about the fish. So, for the fish are cold-blooded. This means that their blood temperature changes with the temperature of their surrounding environment. Okay? This is why fish will sometimes migrate to a warmer water area in the cold months. Most fish live very close to the shore in shallow water, okay, in water that is less than 600 feet deep. Okay, that's because the more shallow the water, the warmer it can get. The sun can penetrate through and heat it up. The other reason why they live in more shallow water, typically, most of them at least, is in the ocean, the deeper the water, the dimmer the light, or the darker it is. Raise your hand if you've seen Finding Nemo. You know that part where Dory and Marlin are swimming down into that deep, dark hole, which is just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Yeah. And they get to the bottom, and they run into that fish that has the little, yes, thank you, with the little glow ball on the end of its antenna thingy. Okay. That is an example of a fish that lives deeper than 600 feet. Many fish who live at 2,000 feet or deeper have the natural ability to glow in the dark because there is no light down there. Okay? At some point, the light rays cannot penetrate deep into the water anymore, and it gets darker and darker and darker till the point where it's pitch black. Okay? Those kinds of fish, they're rare, but there are different species of fish that live that deep. And they typically have the ability to glow in the dark within their body. Okay? Called bioluminescence. Good word. Okay? All fish have an organ called gills. You probably know that, but you may not know what they're for. These gills absorb oxygen from the water and pass it along to the bloodstream. It's important for you to know that there is oxygen in water. It is not the same type of oxygen as our air. Okay? Oxygen in the air is oxygen gas. Okay? That's what our lungs are able to take in and process. Okay? Our lungs are a special organ designed to take oxygen gas and transport it to our bloodstream. We have to have that to live. Most animals and living things do. Okay? Fish, however, have a separate organ called gills. Gills are the organ that you need to absorb the oxygen from water and then pass it into the bloodstream. Now, gills don't work with oxygen gas. If we had gills, we'd be suffocating right now. Lungs don't work with water. If you try and breathe water with lungs, you will drown. Okay? So lungs absorb oxygen from air. Gills absorb oxygen from water. Fish also have scales covering their body. We call it like their armor because it does help protect the fish. But on top of the scales, there's this slimy kind of mucus-like substance that covers their bodies. Okay? There's two reasons for that. For one thing, it makes them slippery and helps them slip through the water. Okay? If you know this if you've ever tried to hold a fish. They're typically very slippery and they slip right out very fast. That's because of that slimy stuff that covers their scales. Okay? The second reason is for the same reason that we put Neosporin or Vaseline on cuts. Right? If you get a scrape and you go and put Neosporin on it, the point of that is to protect anything from getting inside the cut and causing it to be infected, correct? Okay. The same thing happens with the mucus of the fish. Yes, it helps the fish slip through the water, but it also prevents bacteria from getting into the fish and causing infection. Okay? It's like a Band-Aid, like a wet Band-Aid, sort of. Okay? So, 2 points for that mucus. Helps them move and helps protect them. I see your hand, just wait. The next organ we want to discuss is the swim bladders. Okay? Fish stay afloat because of an organ called a swim bladder. By changing the amount of air in its bladder, a fish never rises or sinks, but stays balanced. If you ever watched a fish swim, you know that they can swim up, swim down, or they could just hang out in the middle all the time. Okay? Now, if we try to do that, we have to work really hard to stay underwater. Okay? This is what I mean by that. If you've ever been swimming or been to the ocean or a lake or something and tried to sit like under the water while holding your breath, you're constantly having to push yourself back down, right? That's because you're holding your breath and the oxygen gas in your lungs wants to float up like a bubble. Okay? Just like if you had a balloon that was blown up, it doesn't stay underwater, it floats up. Okay? The fish has an organ in their body that's kind of like a balloon. Their body will control and regulate how much air is in their swim bladder to help them either float up or float down. Okay? If you're sitting underwater and trying to sit at the bottom of the pool and you let all the air out of your lungs, you can't do it for long because eventually you'll suffocate, but you can sit on the ground of the pool because there's no longer a balloon in your lungs causing you to float up. You see what I'm talking about? Okay? So fish have a swim bladder where they can regulate how big, sort of a bubble is in that organ so that they're either floating up or staying down or staying at the same level. Okay? That's also why when fish die, they float. Okay? Because they're no longer controlling that organ. And so they bloop, belly up. Okay? Most fish. Some fish actually will die face down. Just depends on it depends on what causes the death. Okay? Reagan.
certain fishes after certain, I just say like climate.
Mhm.
Climate.
Mhm.
So, like, the sunlight zone is the least layer of salt, and then as you get down, one is what's part of the top of all
Yes.
two, lots and lots of salt.
Mhm. Good point. Connor?
So it is scientifically possible to breathe without oxygen underwater, but you can't stay under there for long. But sometimes whenever you come back up and there's too much water in your lungs,
Mhm.
you won't survive for at least a week.
Mhm. Yep.
But
That's
it
a
is
problem.
scientifically possible to breathe water underwater.
Well, if you have the oxygen tank with you, yeah.
Haha.
Landon?
So bird. I have a trick to stay underwater longer.
Oh yeah.
It's like breathing underwater, but it's very much not like breathing underwater. I just take a very, very big breath and keep it on.
Mhm.
I don't know. Push it up, push it up.
Uh huh. Interesting. Interesting.
And also, that's something a lot of people do with like meditation or which I can understand because the little thing is if you're on way down there,
Mhm.
really, really, really dark over situation. And like let's say you yourself is all the way down there.
All right, I'll get to you guys in just a minute. All right. Fish also have fins that help to move the fish forward, steer left to right, and help the fish keep its balance. Okay? There are a couple different types of fins. The first one are the pectoral and pelvic fins. These are the ones on the side. Okay? These are used for balance, okay, not tilting one way or the other, steering, turning left and right, and braking. Okay? If they're swimming and they need to stop moving, they can flare those fins out to help them stop. The dorsal fin is the big one on top. Okay? This helps keep the fish from rolling over and works along with the anal fin, which is towards the bottom or the back of the fish. And then lastly, one of the one that provides the fish power and thrust is the tail or the caudal fin. Okay? Allows them to obviously flick that back and forth and push forward into the water. Okay? Parker.
I have two things. First,
Hold on, pause. I'll get to these hands in 1 second, but we're going to stop there with the notes. Tomorrow we'll pick up here. Okay? So let me stop this, Parker, and then I'm going to get back to you.